Wait, and how's it going?
Good, man. How are you?
Good. I'm good. I'm good. I got a little something for you.
All right, let's go.
All right. So I realized that listening to My First Million, one of both of our favorite pods, it sort of feels like Sean and Sam are always trying to impress each other.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, hey, what do you got? What do I got? So I got one for you. So last week we talked about mental models. Long story short, I'm like, mental models are a bullshit waste of time. And you're like, there's probably a little more to it than that. And I'm like, yeah, it probably is. So I go to myself, what are some mental models that would actually be relevant to me personally and might actually be a performance enhancer, like from the mental perspective? Here's what I came up with. Um, Basically, it's a way to avoid being a little bitch. Now, that's a bit of a generic a statement, but these are called the bitch attitudes. And this is actually helpful to me, like really helpful to me to go through this. So, is it called an anagram where each letter stands for a word?
Something like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
hologram. Yeah, hologram. That's it.
Yeah, let's go with
Um,
that.
yeah. So these are the five attitudes that I came up with. I'm curious your response, and I struggle with some or all of these. Okay, these are the bitch attitudes. B is for belittled. And I think that's a solid one because this is sort of like the victim mindset, and this can be super small. For example, and the reason why I was really thinking about this, okay, I'm 20 minutes late starting the pod because I didn't have my shit. My shit was not charged. You could have easily, and maybe you do, felt snubbed by this, like, this is stupid. It's a sign of disrespect, right?
Dude, I
Or
had to go I had to go into the other room just to cool down and like compose myself. I was that frustrated with you.
are you serious?
No.
Okay, good. I was gonna say, okay, I was gonna say, like, you're being a little bit too much of a bitch on that one. Like, I love you, but chill out. Yeah. So it could be something little like that. It could be something big. Like an example from my own life is sometimes I have this voice in my head that like nobody likes me. Like, oh,
Mm.
they never reach out. Like I've tried to like schedule something with them. They never schedule shit with me, right? Oh, I guess they don't like me, right? So belittled is the B. The I is it just is. So it just is makes my blood boil perhaps more than anything else. I'm one of these people who absolutely cannot tolerate rules. Like I just don't.
Mm.
I don't like rules. I don't like being told what to do. That's how I've lived my life, my career, etc. So it just is. I hear this all the time, and you do too. Where it's like, oh, I'm just old. Oh, I hurt my leg 5 years ago. That's just the way it is. Huge fuck that. If you're in that attitude, which I am from time to time, you're being a little bitch. Then the T, I'm just going to keep rolling through these, but stop me if you want. The T, and this is the hardest one for me, is for tired because
Mm.
being tired sucks. It's for me, it fucks everything up. Like
Yeah.
it's like tree sap all over me and my mind and my interests.
Yeah.
But as far as I know, there's not a great cure for being tired. You can't just be like, oh, I'm being a little bitch. Let me get high energy. Um, I mean, I think there are a lot of ways to do that. You probably know some, but
But it's
like,
hard to get yourself to do them when you're tired. You know what
yeah,
I mean? Like
exactly.
it's, you're just like, no, screw this. I just want to like do nothing.
Yeah, I'm just gonna sink into my tiredness. But
Exactly.
like you probably heard Sean on My First Million talking about how Tony Robbins does this thing where you create your best self and then you figure out what you have to do to be that. And so like
Mm.
Beyonce has Sasha Fierce. And
Yeah.
so I'm actually really, really interested in this and I'm going to be doing work on this at a minimum. I'm going to try to go to a Tony Robbins thing, which I'm into that kind of stuff anyways. But
Interesting.
yeah. So BITT is tired. Don't be tired. More to be figured out around that one. C is cheap. Don't be cheap. Now I see your wheels turning. So what do I
Well,
mean by that? This is a little bit like what's the dude's name? The How to Be a Millionaire guy, or what is it? I will teach you to be rich. That guy.
yeah. Yeah.
Sethi, whatever his name is. His
He
thing is
annoys me, but that's a conversation for another day.
they all annoy me. Anybody who's more successful than me annoys me. So
That's probably what it is.
yeah, that's what it is. But he really kind of got this viral thing going where he's like, you're never going to get rich by not buying a latte. Buy the fucking latte.
Exactly.
For me, there is really something deep in there. Like, I grew up low income, grew up super cheap, grew up with my mom in my ear. Like, you don't know what money is. You can't buy that, right? And it stuck with me. But now I'm in a position in my life where, like, if something matters to me, I shouldn't act cheap, but I still do sometimes. And there's time to be cheap. There's a time not to be, but like, don't be a cheap little bitch. When you figure out the things that are important to you, like, take an investment mindset on that, like invest in it.
Yep.
And then last one, H is hostile. So at this point, you can tell that I was like trying to manipulate these to make it fit the word bitch, which it does. Thank you very much. But H is hostile. Simple enough. I think that's a super ineffective feeling, to be feeling defensive. Like, it's the equivalent of closing doors in your own face for me. I have so many experiences where I have been guarded, defensive, sort of hostile in attitude with a partner, with a client, with my wife, like a friend, whatever. And literally 100% of the time, just completely regret it. And you think about these like, that was a couple years ago. And I still think about when I was like just sort of an asshole in a provoked.
What leads, like, what causes it? Do you have an example?
I'll give you like this is a really dumb, kind of simple example, but hunger. 100%. If I am hungry, I will be a reactionary, kind of like, kind of bitch about it. Now, there's probably a lot more to it than that. So the closest example and why I thought of this was yesterday. I had a call with a client for my services business who I have fired. I just said, look, wait, we're done. I can't service you anymore. We'll give you 60 days to move on. But I'm very personally connected to them. And I really wanted to be helpful during this whole transition. They've annoyed me so much during this time. I'm not getting paid for any of this, type of attitude. He was bitching at me yesterday about their final invoice. And I was just like, I was like, you need to know this. You are the worst client ever that we've ever had by an exponential margin, like not by a little bit.
You said those words to him.
Literally said those words and repeated them. And then what I do is, once I've shown my ass like that and I start feeling bad, I dig my heels in and go further to make myself feel right. And so I've already texted him, I've called him, I've apologized. I lost sleep last night. It's just, that's what it is. I feel like being hostile or defensive just slams opportunities and doors shut in your face.
Yeah. I love that, man. That's such a cool model, the bitch attitudes. So let me read them back to you so I know I've got them. I've probably already forgot. B. What was B?
Belittled.
It's too long ago. Belittled.
Yeah.
I.
It's just the way it is.
It's just the way it is. That I like that one a lot. It annoys me so much when other people use it, and I probably do too, to an extent. T. Tired. C. Was
cheap.
Yeah. It's the half coffee I had this morning, man. It's getting to me. Well, it's not getting to me. That's the issue. And H was hostile.
Yeah.
I love that.
So don't be a little bitch. Don't do those 5 things. Yeah. Good mental model. So on a scale of 1 to viral, how do you think this would land in the self-help personal development circles?
I think it'll land in the self-help personal development circle that I want to be a part of. I think in other circles, it'll maybe, you know how there's like those people where they're like, it's too negative, or like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's offensive. Like, I won't land there, but that's fine. It doesn't need to land there.
So those people literally fall into one of the bitch
exactly.
attitude that I literally just described.
Yeah, actually, they need to hear it the most. Like, that's the issue.
Exactly. Yeah. The other thing I liked about this is last week when we talked, I said some offensive shit. Not really because, like I said, therapy's bullshit, right?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
offensive.
Yeah.
You're like,
Sure.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
Not to me, but maybe to other people.
And so I'm not trying to be offensive, like for showmanship. I'm actually just trying for really the first time to say the things that I actually believe and care about in the way that's comfortable to me. And I've never done that. Really. I've really never done that. Like when I used to do a weekly email newsletter, it was very, formal and hi everyone, how are you, and that's great. Yeah. That's no problem. But like a part of this stuff, like we're doing on the pod, I'm trying to like find my own voice,
100%. I like that a lot. And I'm the same. I don't want to hold back. I will hold back a bit, but like not too much.
Where's the line? Like really, like would there just be things that are embarrassing or too offensive or something?
No. I think it's more like the context of the podcast and like the niche that we're in. Like there's some things that just aren't relevant that I might have controversial opinions on that I probably won't share. I don't want it to devolve into like political debate. You know what I mean? Like
yes. But are you an anarcho-capitalist?
I have those tendencies, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. I remember when I first heard the word anarcho-capitalist, and I was like reading about this, and when I heard that word, I was like, "Oh, this is fucked up." And then when I was like really digging into it, I was like, "Oh crap, I think I am one." I don't really embrace the term, but yeah.
No, I'm actually intentionally trying to just stay away from all this stuff now because it's like a massive distraction to me.
I am too. The only thing that I have found interesting in politics, like in the last 3 years, is this fact, and I'm literally Googling to try to figure this out. Donald Trump has been going to every single UFC event.
Yeah.
Did you know that? He's in the front row with Dana White at every single fight. And
maybe he's gearing up for a fight, man.
I just don't know why. He's too old to fight.
Yeah.
Well,
he might just like it. Like
he might just like it, but like with him, and we don't have to go any further, but like this is just surface level stuff. But with him, there's always a motive. Like he's trying to, it's a part of his brand, or he's trying to reach a certain audience or whatever. And so I'm just really curious, like, I think that I'm not saying good or bad. I think he is effective at marketing himself and getting voters.
100%.
So I'm just curious, like, what does the UFC have to do with this? Like, is that just his base? Anyways,
that's a good observation. I hadn't thought of that actually.
So these are things that we will not talk about on the pod, which we just did.
Off air, maybe.
Yeah,
is what it is.
Yeah, off air.
Oh, there's one of the bitch attitudes.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of not being a bitch, I really want to hear about your hunting trip. So you went on, was this like your first time hunting, by the way?
First
hunting. Prop.
Yeah.
Okay. And I've never been. I mean, like a little thing when I was a kid. I've never been hunting. And I'm really interested in it because it seems to be, I mean, people have been hunting forever, obviously, but it seems to be like really trending in a new type of way. Like Joe Rogan's always hunting, and Kid Rock, all he talks about is hunting, and like Tim Ferriss is out hunting, and everybody's like doing crossbows and hunting. And I'm super, super into this. So who did you go with? Like, what was their skill set, et cetera? Where was this? And then like, how did the whole thing go down?
I'll tell you about that. I'd also like to talk about why I think it's becoming popular, which is kind of the meta discussion. We'll get to that. So, disclaimer, because I posted the photo to Instagram and stuff, and like, I actually thought I'd get a bit more pushback. I didn't.
You mean people being like, I can't believe
yeah, like one person sad reacted to it. And then I went to their profile and they had like pronouns in the bio, so I was like, whatever.
There we go. I didn't mention that in the bitch attitudes, there's 2 H's. The last one is hunting. Like if you're against hunting, you're a little bitch. So anyways,
exactly. Yeah. So like in New Zealand, where I live, and where I'm from, like hunting is very popular. It's we don't have any natural predators in New Zealand, so like there's no bears, there's no like wolves that are going to kill animals like deer. And what deer do, they're beautiful creatures, but they completely mess up the environment. Like they eat bushes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they're pests.
And so in New Zealand, you can basically just walk onto public land with a permit that takes like 2 minutes to get on the internet. It doesn't cost anything. And you can shoot an animal, which is great. I've just never done it before. So I have a friend here in Christchurch where I live. He's super into hunting. And when I met him, I was like, man, like, I know you're into hunting. Like, I'd love to head out. Long story short, we head out on last Saturday. It's Friday today. It's been about a week. We leave at 5:30 in the morning, drive an hour and a half, start working at 7.
Just out to the mountains. You're just like out.
Yeah, it's kind of like this valley. There's like a river down there. We walk along that river for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
Feet get super cold. Walk up the top of the hill. It's probably about 4,000 feet elevation at the top. So it's high, but it's not like super high. And we see a bunch of deer. They keep running away from us. Because they can smell us, right? This is one thing that I realized. It's like I'm a researcher, okay? So like prior to the hunt, I was like going on all these forums, like trying not to look like a dick. Like I don't want to get to the day and be like a complete noob. So one of the mistakes I made is I had like this 65-liter hiking pack. And I was like, is this too big for like a day
like
hunt?
Noisy or something?
Yeah, I was like, surely it's too big. I go on forums and like everyone's saying, yeah, just take like a 25-liter backpack. Like you don't need a full pack. I'm like, all right, I'm not going to take the pack because I'm going to get there and they're going to be like, why did you bring a pack, dude? Like that's too big.
Okay, I'm like dying laughing because it's so funny to imagine these like really tried and true experienced hunters. They're bringing on the rookie for the first time. And I'm imagining like first day of school, you show up and you're like, hey guys, I'm ready to go. And they're like, what the fuck is on your back? And you've got a pack like from here down to your knees. And you're like, did I bring too much stuff?
Yeah.
Like, what is it?
Well, so that's what I imagined it would be. And so I was like, well, I better not take a pack. So I've got like this 25-liter, 30-liter tactical rucking pack that I was like, cool, fit everything in nicely. I was like, shit, if I get some meat, I don't know how I'm going to fit it in, but we'll figure it out. And so I rock up at my friend's house and like it's 3 of us. So it's him, his friend, and then me. And I see that they've both got these like huge hiking packs.
Yeah.
And I'm like...
So you did the opposite. You brought the small one.
I did the opposite because that's what the internet told me to do. So, anyway.
Now, can I just
that was mistake number 1.
Can I just flag this for you? The experienced hunter who's taking you, perhaps you could have just asked him.
Yeah, but like I'd already asked quite a few questions and I was like, I don't want to, you know what I mean? Like,
being a little bit.
I was like, we got on a day hunt, like, should I bring a tent just in case? He's like, no.
Okay, that's such a dumb. I don't even think I would have asked that question, dude.
Anyway,
okay, carry on.
We get to like it's about 1 p.m. and the deer keep running away and we're like, we'll head back because it's going to be like a 4-hour walk back and it gets dark here at like 5 p.m. at the moment.
Yeah.
We had headlamps. It's not a big deal. As we're walking back, we look over at this ridge through the binoculars and there's like these stags, which for those who don't know, like a stag is a male deer, red deer, and it has like the antlers and it's like cooler to get a stag than like a female deer. And so it was like, by this point, I was physically exhausted and I wanted to go back, but they were like, oh, Sam, it's your first hunt. Like, there's a stag out there. Like, it's up to you. No pressure. Do you want to do it? And of course, when someone says no pressure, I'm like, and there's a group of other people, I'm like, yeah, let's do
this. Yeah.
I'm not going to be a little bitch.
Yeah.
So we walk over, takes like an hour, get set up. I
Wait, wait,
take the
wait.
shot.
Let me stop here. So basically, you've been hiking 90% of the time, and
Yeah.
then you see some deer, and it takes an hour to get set up to shoot one.
Yeah, okay, so
And
the
you're
deer,
hoping they don't run away during that hour.
exactly. The whole
What do you have
time I
to
was
do
thinking
for an
as we were
hour?
walking. These stags were probably about, they were across this ridge. So imagine you're like on a hill and you can see this like
Uh-huh.
other hill in the distance, probably about
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
500-600 meters away.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to get there, you have to go up over the top of the ridge and then down to get close enough to it.
Oh, so
Um,
this is like the final approach to set up
yeah,
the kill
like
or whatever.
you can't really shoot it. Like you could, it was too far away to shoot at. It was like 700 meters maybe. Like you're not going to get that shot. So we got closer within about 270 yards. That was actually the shot. And if you haven't shot a rifle before, it's not like a video game where you're looking through the scope and you see exactly what happens after you shoot.
Right.
Like the rifle kicks back, it's a blur, and my immediate thought was like, I've missed. And I just hear my friend say, "Oh, you dropped him." And I was like,
What do you mean?
you just completely dropped like the deer.
No, I know, but you were like, wait,
Yeah, I was like,
you're like, what? I dropped dropped a shell. Like I dropped the casing. Yeah.
No, I knew exactly what he meant, and I was like, said a few things that I won't repeat, and then
But that was like that's got to be the best feeling, like
oh,
that you felt in a very long
yeah,
time.
that was a massive rush. And then we walked down to it. Took like, yeah.
Sorry, one more question here. Do you have a lot of riflery experience? Like, how can you shoot a 270-yard shot and land it on your first try?
On the Tuesday before the Saturday, so Tuesday last week, I went to the range and like sighted in my rifle and put 20 rounds through it. That's about the extent of the shooting experience I have.
And when you were doing that practice on Tuesday, were you like nailing some long ass shots? And you were like,
No,
okay,
it was about 100 yards.
Damn,
so
dude.
Maybe it's a fluke, man. I don't know. They were like, "That's a good shot for your first shot."
Yeah,
like,
and nobody else took a shot. They were just kind of letting you.
Just letting me because it was my first hunt. Plus, we get down there, seeing the animal, like it's an interesting experience. It's like before that, I'd only ever shot like rabbits, like small, you know. It's like this animal's bigger than me. This is like 100 plus kgs or 200 and whatever pounds.
Some pounds. Yeah.
We cut it up. We take the meat. I'll walk all the way back. Get home at like 12 a.m.
Put all the meat in their packs because you had a little tiny bitch pack. Is that what happened?
I took my light stuff out of my pack, put it in my friend's pack, and then put the entire leg in my pack with the actual leg sticking out because I couldn't like zip it up. And then wrap the head onto the back. But
okay, did you guys do any kind of like ritual? Like, did you take some blood and like mark it on you? Did you cut his balls off? None of this?
No,
okay, where I grew up, they do stuff like that. Where I grow up, everybody hunts deer. They're like small deer, not like the one you got.
Yeah.
And they go to these camps where the kids are like 14 years old. They go on their first hunt. Somebody gets a deer. They cut his balls off, put it on a string around the boys' necks, and they have to wear it and all this different stuff. I don't really know where that comes from, but
well, there's some people who eat the heart, and we did make a joke about that. Yeah. He's like, "Hey, there's a heart there if you want it." And I was like, and no, like I think I'm kind of badass now that I've killed a deer, but I'm not that badass.
Dude, I guarantee you I could have gotten you to eat the heart. You know how? Guaranteed.
How?
Just be like, hey, no pressure. No pressure, dude. You would have been like, I'm doing it. That's like your buzzword or whatever. Like,
yeah, that might have worked. I don't know.
Yeah. No pressure, man.
Anyway,
good.
Yeah. Great day. How it relates to Outliers. I mean, look, like, I don't know. It's just cool to talk about. We don't need to relate it to the podcast idea.
No, I do want to though, because it's popping. So when I was thinking about hunting, I was thinking about like Cameron Hanes, Cameron Hanes, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years ago, literally no one's ever heard of this guy.
Exactly.
Now he's the fucking hottest high performer, most interesting man in the world. Right. And it's just cool to see that stuff happen. And a lot of it revolves around hunting. And I keep on podcasts, whatever, all these like ultra high performers are like, and an MMA fighter who just won a big fight in the
Yeah.
interview, they're like, "What's next?" He's like, "Oh, I've got permits for elk season in Colorado."
Mm,
It just
mm,
keeps coming up and up and up. So I am wondering why. I'm wondering if it just mostly has to do with the exposure to nature. Like, okay,
yeah.
one, it's a group activity. Two, you're basically hiking. So
It's hard.
it's hard. You're hiking.
You're not
Your
hiking.
heart
You're
rate is
usually
up.
not hiking through trails. That's the other thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. You're trekking.
it's like
Like just
that was the thing I found hard. Just like walking through bush, my
yeah,
legs
yeah,
got
yeah.
completely scratched up. It was like it
Wait, did you not?
was
I mean,
awesome.
you had pants on, not shorts, right?
Shorts.
You wore
Yeah.
shorts for the whole thing? Did the other
Yeah.
guys?
Yeah. That's New Zealand, bro. That's what we wear. It's
Okay,
like, yeah,
I have to
it's
say,
cold.
I saw that picture of you, holding the deer's antlers, and you were in shorts, and
Yeah.
I literally thought, oh, he took his pants off for the picture. That's weird. I was going to
No,
ask
no,
you
no.
why. Oh, dude, that's
No,
hilarious. That no,
it would have
that
been
would
better to
never
wear
fly in
pants.
America. Never fly in
Really?
America. No way.
Interesting.
Yeah, total cultural difference.
Yeah, well, we were kind of joking about the fact that, like, hunters these days, or anyone in any sort of field, you have all this gear, like all these gadgets. And it's like, you go back 100 years, some guy just went out there, no headlamps because
Yeah,
they
yeah.
didn't exist. He
Nothing.
had like normal clothes, probably didn't even have a scope on his rifle. And he just like killed deer.
Fuck, you go back
It's like,
before that, they just had like a
yeah,
handmade bow and arrow and some rocks,
exactly.
and they would take down
Um,
bison. In the
but yeah,
U.S.
going back to what you were saying,
Yeah,
I think it's becoming very popular with people who like to perform in various fields because of the physicality of it, because of the nature, like you mentioned. And then it's like especially with bow hunting, which I've never done, but I have a friend who does it. It's like hunting on hard mode. Like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you cannot
yeah.
shoot a bow from 270 yards. You've got to
No,
get
no,
way
no,
closer.
no, no. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
I was thinking about that. I was like, man, bow hunting,
yeah,
I'd love to get into it, but it's
yeah.
I also like meat, and so I'd like to get some meat occasionally.
And you got an ass load of meat. Do you have like a deep freezer where you put all this meat? Do you call it venison? We call it venison. I don't know.
Venison. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yep. I ate the back steaks, like the back straps on the top of the deer.
Yeah.
And then yesterday I picked up a ton. So I went to the butcher with all the leg meat because it's not
Yeah.
that nice. Like
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
yeah, beef is way better. And I went there and they're like, oh, we can only do one thing because I wanted salami. I wanted like burgers, like the whole lot.
Yeah.
We can only do one thing. And I was like, I'll just get sausages then. And so I picked them up yesterday. And it's like this huge bag of venison sausages with like Texan chili flavor. I get home, and Emily's like, what? And my
Gross,
wife,
dude.
she's like,
Yeah.
this is going to last a long time. It's like, yeah.
Have you eaten one yet?
Yeah, we had them last night. They were great.
Were they good? Okay, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I just hope they're good because that would totally suck if they like
No,
shitty. It
they're
tasted
good.
bad. You'd be like,
They're
oh
good.
god.
Yeah.
Yo, I got a great salami New Zealand story. It's short,
Yeah.
actually. Is it a great story? So it starts with kind of a funny thing. This is like actually really funny to me about New Zealand. So my wife and we rented an SUV, put an air mattress in the back, and we drove around both islands for a month.
Yeah.
Amazing. Like, as biased as you are from living there, like, that's an amazing experience for anyone in the world. Like, your country is literally insane. So early in the trip, we just would we had like a camping stove in the SUV. We put it on the ground. Like, whenever we pulled over to eat, we would stop at little local places, like try to find some whatever. I'm at a local butcher shop. This is outside of Auckland somewhere, maybe 3-4 hours outside of Auckland. And I go in, I'm talking to the guy. I'm like, oh, wow, what's this? What's that? What's that? And I'm like, so is everything local? And he was like, local? What do you mean? And I was like, like, is everything like the meat, the animals, are they local? And he was like, local? And I was like, are they from around here? And he was like, yes. It was hilarious. He literally didn't understand the question. And I was just like, oh, all of your food is local. I get it, which is just phenomenal. Like, the food on the whole in New Zealand was phenomenal from that perspective to me. But anyways, we chatted for a bit. I bought some lamb chops, which we ate an ass load of in New Zealand. And he's like, hey, I have something special that I just, made. I've got it in the back. Do you guys want to try some duck salami? And I'm just like, God, yes, I want to try some duck
Yeah.
salami.
Yeah.
Best thing I've never even heard of it. That dude comes back out with a 14-inch, I don't know kilos, but this is like a 3-4 pound log of duck salami. And he's like, here you go,
Hmm.
drops it in a bag. And
Wow.
I'm just like, oh, okay. So, I mean, it's literally for the next week, we were eating slices off the duck salami
Oh
that this
man.
dude made. And it was still to this day one of the best things I've ever eaten.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. Never
Thanks,
tried
New
duck
Zealand.
salami, but I want to now.
Yeah. So back to high performers hunting. Anything more to be said there? My takeaway from this, yeah,
Oh no, go ahead.
no. What I was trying to think about is I love the idea of like trend investing, not too trendy,
Mm,
but like I would want to find a way to invest in hunting. Like if I was an
yes.
entrepreneur, if I was interested, I don't know what that would be. But when you think about hunting, you're like, oh, people have been hunting forever. But no,
Yeah.
something has changed. And there's going to be an explosion of like direct to consumer hunting brands, new types of gear. Like if you think about like gym gear, right? I just
Yeah.
bought a hip hook and I bought shorts from 10,000. It never stops. I bought a red light
Here's
electrical therapy thing. Like that's going to be happening for
Dude,
hunting.
I think here's where gap in the market is. I could be completely off on this, but
Well,
go
you
back a
have been
couple of
hunting one
years.
time. So
Yeah, no, it's more I'm coming from the perspective of someone who wanted to go hunting 3 years ago, but like I didn't want to go by
yes,
myself.
yes,
Um
yes. I think
and
I
I
know
didn't
the
like really
idea.
have
Hit me.
anyone. It's also kind of weird to ask people like, can you take me hunting?
Yep.
Because it's a hard thing to do. You're often hiking a lot. You don't just want to take anyone out, I assume, like as an experienced hunter, for obvious reasons. It's like you don't want to get stuck with them or they screw something up.
Yeah.
Um, Now in New Zealand, and I imagine in the States as well, there are what's called outfitters. And so actually we have a huge industry in New Zealand, which is like basically
Yep.
trophy hunting. Americans will come over. You go onto these websites, they're like in US dollars, even though we don't use US dollars.
Yeah.
And you pay like $30,000 to get a big stag or like whatever. And it's like, that doesn't appeal to me. And I'm not paying 30 grand to go and shoot an animal.
Yeah.
But I would pay like, I don't know, like a grand, 2 grand to like, and I would have back in the day to go out and have someone like guide me with hunting. And they do exist, but I think that's just going to become a bigger industry of people who like
Yeah.
want to go hunting, not necessarily for the trophy aspect. They don't want like the white glove experience where they go back to a lodge at the end of the night and get like a five
No. No.
star
No. No.
dinner cooked, They just want to go out with someone who knows what they're doing, who's prepared to do some hard work. So I think that's one area to invest or like think about business opportunities. And then the other would be just the gear. Like
Dude, I have
it's
literally
so
the two
expensive.
exact
It's
same
so
ideas. Yeah.
expensive.
Yeah.
The amount of money I've spent in the last few months is like stupid.
So you were buying all the stuff for this so you'd have it.
Well,
You weren't like
it's
borrowing
it's not
stuff.
like for the one hunt. Like it's something I want to keep
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I knew
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But stuff isn't cheap, man.
Dude, I had literally the exact two same ideas. Number one, I would call the first one like the UX of going hunting.
Mm,
For me, it's impenetrable. So I don't have the friend that you have. Like I don't have any friends that I
mm,
know of like
yeah.
locally that do stuff like this. So start at square zero. Okay, you don't even have that. So at one point a few years ago, I'm like, I'll look at what's online. Like, what do I need? Like, how do you get a permit? Maybe I can figure some things out. Absolutely impenetrable from like
Mm,
a user experience standpoint. There is no Airbnb for hunting. There is no like, oh, you're in Greenville, South Carolina. Here's the place to go. You need to talk to
yeah.
Mike, and the permit's $40. That'll get you started. So there's something to be said there. And then yeah, the gear too. One time I looked at buying a business. This might have been before I knew you, but it was a content site for hunting gear recommendations, and it
Huh.
specialized in the sites and other stuff too.
Yeah.
But I was like,
Yeah.
man, that's a really good niche. Like
Oh yeah.
if you Google anything about like a hunting site or rifle site, whatever they're called, it like goes to this guy's site. I probably missed that one, but
So yeah, I mean it's like high ticket products, man. I think mine
Yeah.
was 1,500 US.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, yeah. Anyway,
So yeah, go invest in hunting. Speaking of hunters or not hunters, you want to talk about Bryan Johnson? Total
let's
pivot.
talk about Bryan Johnson. I've actually
Okay,
been looking forward to this topic.
I have too,
He's
and
so fascinating to me.
yeah, and so the connection here is that he's a vegan, which
Yes.
and there's a lot more to be said about him. I will confess, for me, veganism is basically a mental disability, and
Ooh, going right in.
yeah, like you're literally the time and place for veganism is like I totally am into like monks, right? Like a monk,
Sure.
a
Yeah.
Buddhist monk who's vegan, no problem, perfect, makes sense, right?
Mm,
There's a time and a
mm.
place and a purpose for it, but I'm so biased against it. But here comes Bryan Johnson, who is literally proving with hard data that it is like extremely healthy in a huge number of ways, and he's not
Yeah.
like a shriveled up dude. Like he's cut, he's strong, he works
Doesn't he
out.
say
So
though that he's vegan by choice?
I don't know, I never saw that.
No,
No,
I think he does.
everything he does is for longevity. I don't know
Yeah,
about the
but
by choice
I think he
part.
said somewhere. I could be wrong, but like I think he said somewhere. I'm vegan by choice, not necessarily because it's like the healthiest thing.
Please
So
find that, because that's
I
gonna
don't think he's anti meat. Well, I don't think he says that meat is worse for you because that's the other thing I take issue with. It's like I'm pretty sure meat, especially red meat, is like good for you. You know?
yeah, it is. It categorically good for you.
Yeah,
However, the question is, are there other ways of eating that might be even better? And I don't know,
yeah,
but I'd have to find out more about that, because I thought veganism was like foundational. He says on his site, he's like, a huge myth is that if you're vegan and you use caloric restriction, like he eats like 1,900 calories a
mm,
day, he was like, the myth is that you're going to be frail and weak. And he's like, and that's just not true.
mm.
So
Sure, I'd agree with that. Yeah.
he looks kind of frail and weak to me, to be honest. But
um,
so anyways, back up.
where do we start with Bryan Johnson? I mean, I think he's so interesting to me. I want to not like him, and I think I don't know why that is.
Yeah.
When he first came on the scene, I was like, "There's something wrong with this dude. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
what's going on?" But now, as I've watched more of his videos, I'm like, I don't want to be him, uh, but I like what he's doing in the sense that like he's basically he's a science experiment, and he's got to push things forward that like scientists can't do because it takes so long.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I still don't know what to think. I'm
So
like,
I had some
yeah,
notes. The literal first sentence I wrote is, he's a science experiment. But my thing here is that like science is extremely, extremely interesting,
mm,
but I'm not personally that interested in it. So
yeah,
like my feel with Bryan Johnson, I've read like all of his Medium articles, and there's some really interesting stuff. But like my feel is that whenever he finds the big conclusions that he's looking for, I will read the book. In the
yes,
meantime, I'm not the biggest into this thing. What I found really interesting about him are when I read through his Medium articles, he basically came up with like three really big ideas, and Blueprint came out of one of them. His company Kernel came out of one of them. And then like what he's working on now came out of it. And I thought that was really interesting. Like imagine being a person who's like, I have three massive ideas. They all connect together a little bit. One of them, I'm going to completely change my life in a way that basically no human has done before. Another one, I'm going to invest all of my like hundreds of millions of dollars into this one pie in the sky futuristic company. So I thought that was really cool. So can I walk you through these like three
yeah, yeah, yeah.
big ideas, and then we'll like go back through more. So the with him, it sort of starts with what he calls the self IPO. Have you seen this? Have you read
No,
about this? Okay, so this whole blueprint thing, everything that's doing, it goes back to, he just basically had this insight that there's a bunch of different people living inside of me and their goals don't align. Everybody's all fucked up. There's the guy in me who wants to sleep late. There's the guy in me who says we should get up early. There's a guy in me who wants to eat pizza at midnight. And there's a guy in me who is worried about work, right? And so he just came up with this big plan, and he calls it the All Bryans. He's like, so his writing's a little corny, but he's like, we had another All Bryans meeting last night, and we fired like late night eating Brian. Like,
Yeah.
It's corny, but I think he's super, super onto something there. So you have to like reconcile those different parts and goals within yourself and align them toward the shit that you know is important to you. Of course, that's sort of what gave birth to Blueprint, because he was like, I'm going to start sleeping better. I'm going to start eating better, and I'm going to improve my longevity. How do I do that? Well, I should do blood tests every 90 days and see what the biomarkers say. Whatever they say, I'm going to modify my diet and whatever, based on that. So anyways, to the self-IPO part, his whole point was, if you can remove all that friction and energy loss from your life of should I get up early or not, or, this thing, it frees up an assload of energy, which you can then IPO into whatever big creative or meaningful thing you're interested in. The second idea he calls self-automation. And so basically what he's saying there is that, okay, so what my insight is that we need to, lock in on these goals and build routines all around them. That's a form of automation. Well, how far can you take this self-automation? Humans have a fixed amount of energy that they can use. Can I automate everything so that I have more energy to put into these futuristic projects? So he writes about self-automation, and I'll read you this bit. He describes the 5 levels of self-automation, and level 5, full automation, is something that doesn't even exist yet, because there's like AI. Like, this is where the human brain interface AI shit comes into play, which is the company he started. So again, like, it's cool how all these things flow together. But anyways, listen, he writes this. At level 5, full automation, your body is optional. It literally just says, quote, body optional. No intervention is required at all. A self goes about one's day optimally guided for all the operational cognitive tasks that are thought undeserving of attention, freeing up all metabolic capacity to explore higher order cognitive discovery. And see, this is where Bryan Johnson loses me. I read that and I'm just like, oh, buddy, like, you really had me on this blueprint stuff, on this longevity. And then it's like, next, we're going to completely automate literally every physical need that you have so that your body's optional and you can focus on higher order cognitive discovery. Isn't that awesome, dude?
That's where it breaks down for me too, because I'm like, there's been something I'm trying to articulate this. I'm not sure if I can, but first of all, I think a lot of the hate towards Bryan Johnson is mostly cope. It's people who look at that and go, you're familiar with like what a cope is.
Not
like,
okay. I don't think so. I know the word.
Someone sees him doing this stuff, like being, super optimized and healthy, and they're like, oh, I mean, you got to live a little. Like, having pizza once a week is like a cool thing to do. It's fun, and it's like, really, a lot of what these people are doing is making justifications for their lack of self-discipline.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a large part of the hate. I just saw it on Twitter before our podcast. Like, Mark Zuckerberg, the Zuck. There's like a photo of him, Israel Adesanya, and Alex Volkanovski, and they're training together. And like, Zuck looks pretty good. Like, he's got a decent physique. And all these comments are like, oh, well, yeah, when you're a billionaire, like, you can afford dietitians and trainers, and like, his physique is good, but it's something that you and I can attain fairly easily, I think.
I'll bet you anything that he actually doesn't have like a huge team of nutritionists. And
I think he's a pretty competitive dude. Like, he's pretty disciplined.
He goes to jiu-jitsu.
I've been accused of like dick riding Zuck on Twitter, so I'm probably going to get accused of that again. I just think it's interesting that he's doing all this.
So, by the way, I didn't know that Bryan Johnson is getting a lot of hate. I mean, I figured there's some haters, but I actually didn't know that going
Yeah,
into this.
maybe it's not hate, but it's just you get these comments that the which I just call it cope because that's what it is. It's people who are like they see that and they instantly try and figure out a way to like justify their own
To knock
choices.
it down. Yeah.
However, I do think on the other end of the spectrum, there's like the idea of being optimal to the point that he is. Like, there's something about that that just I don't know how else to say it. Like, it lacks soul. To give
Yeah,
you an example, which might not
totally.
be that good, like, okay, you go on a hunting trip. Last Saturday, I walked 15 hours. I didn't walk for the whole 15 hours. But it was a long day. It's one of the hardest, like, most physically challenging days of my life. Now, if you looked at that from like a scientific perspective, you're like, oh, you overdid it. That wasn't
Yeah.
the optimal way to train. Like all this kind of
Mhm.
stuff. And yes, I had DOMs for like 3 days afterwards, and it completely threw off my training for the week and all that kind of stuff. Probably wasn't good for longevity either. But like, it was fun. It was
Yeah.
like, so I don't know how to articulate it well, but I think there's like
Oh no, in all
a,
seriousness,
yeah,
if that hunting trip would take 6 months off your life at the end in your
yeah,
80s or 90s, would you still have done it?
6 months. I mean, it's easy for me to say now because I'm 28. I'm like, that's so far away. But yeah, probably, yeah. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
it's a
Dude, I
good
would have said
experience to
yes.
have.
I'm a
And so I
very,
think,
very life is meant to be lived kind of guy. I'm like,
exactly.
let's
So
fucking
I
let's do
like,
this.
one thing I heard yesterday, Danny Miranda podcast with this guy, Peter Crone, who's like a performance coach dude. He said like, I don't like anti-aging, but I like longevity.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a good way to put it. It's like, I have
Mhm.
no interest in trying to live forever, but the idea of extending one's like health span, as Peter Thiel would put it, of course. Why wouldn't you want to do that? Why wouldn't you want to live a a longer, healthier time?
Yeah.
You know? So it's like with Bryan Johnson, take the good parts. I'll do like 10% of it, 20% of it, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. Essentially, I went into it being like, okay, I know I'm not going to like this guy, so let me find the reasons why I don't like him. In the
Yeah.
end, I actually like the guy. I
Yeah.
think it's just
Yeah.
incredible what he's doing. I think it's amazing that he's putting it out there.
Yes.
I think that his big ideas around this concept of self automation, unleashing your energy so it can be directed to higher things, and this other third idea he calls zeroth principle thinking. Have you heard of this?
I've seen it.
Yeah. Well, of course, everybody talks about first principles thinking, but he's got this whole thing like, no, 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 no. We need zeroth principle thinking. And he uses as the example when humans discovered zero, like the
Okay, I've
number.
I've been reading
Have you
I've been reading the book that he recommended.
zero,
Um,
that book?
yeah, like the biography of Zero. It's
Yeah.
fascinating.
Oh, dude, it's on my list now. I was going to call it out. It's called A Biography of a Dangerous Idea.
Yeah,
You're
that's it.
reading it?
Yeah,
Is it
yeah.
good?
I'm like
It's
halfway
super
through.
boring.
No, it's super interesting. I had no
Okay,
idea.
cool.
I just assumed that Zero existed like forever. And it's like, nope.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Yeah. So his whole thing is that like if you can automate yourself and then use AI and then really put all of your human capabilities to good use, you can then come up with new zeros, like
Mm,
fundamental building blocks that are going to change everything. And that's what his companies are supposed to be and what he tries to invest
right, I
in.
see.
So I got to say, like, a dude who is living his ideas in every way, shape, or form, sharing the journey, it's
Mm,
kind of like Zuck. Like at this point, I have stopped hating Zuck. Like it's
mm.
hard to hate him now. The one thing I will
Yeah.
say, I'll say two things. I'll knock this little fucker. One, his company Braintree sucked massively. I was a customer of Braintree. In their defense, they were like early 2000s when basically all
Mm,
software still kind of sucked. But I had to use Braintree for a business once that I consulted with. Horrible, horrible.
mm.
Stripe was like a trillion times better.
Yeah.
Second is if you really want to like kind of like knock the guy, just look at the photos on his site. He's got this whole thing. Like in his writing, he's like, if you want to see more, just look at my photos below. And I look at the photos and I'm like, oh, it's like not cool. Like they're really not that cool. So anyways, keep getting it, Bryan. Go for it, buddy.
Yeah. Sounds like we're on the same page there.
Pretty much.
All right. Do we want to quickly talk about favorite outliers?
Yeah, yeah, I could riff on you. Definitely, we can at least do a
I'll
few.
start. I've got two. I mean, look, when this came up in the notes, I was like, man, the list is endless because it's like what constitutes an outlier. I mean, this just goes on and on. But there's two that I've been kind of following for a while now, and for different reasons. The first is Ross Edgley.
Yeah,
So just like a beast, like in terms of physical performance, I think he's maybe unparalleled in terms of like what's the word? What's the freaking word when you can do many different things?
polymath.
Versatile, polymath. Yeah, I'll say versatile.
Yeah.
So favorite outlier because of his physicality, but also like Bryan Johnson, he's a scientific experiment. So he's
So
pushing
what does he
himself.
do? Like, what is he just a
Yeah,
fitness guy? I don't even know who he is.
you got to look him up on YouTube. So
Oh well, oh well.
he swum around the UK. First one to
The,
do it, I think.
the
It took
whole
6 months.
thing.
The whole thing. Yeah, dude. He's got a book about it. You got to read the book. He
Oh
he swims around
God.
the UK. He doesn't touch land for 6 months. Obviously, he's not swimming for like six. It's
Yeah,
like staying in the water for 6 months. There's just there's one
that's a
part of the book
nightmare.
which is a spoiler, but I tell everyone this because it's just insane. It kind of gives you insight into who he is. He's like swimming. I think it's somewhere near Scotland. Maybe he's a few months in. And the guy on the boat says to him, "You got to sprint for the next 3 hours because there's a storm coming in." And so he's like, "All right." So he sprints for 3 hours.
Oh,
As soon as he starts, he feels this like stinging sensation across his face. He's like, "Oh, that's weird." Carries on. 30 minutes in, he starts feeling like loss of feeling in his hands. It spreads to his arms, like so on and so
swimming
on and
through
so on. He gets
jellyfish or something.
Yeah, so he gets to the end of the 3 hours and he gets on the boat and the guy's like, "You all good?" He's like, "Yeah, I think I got stung by a jellyfish." And he's like, "Still on your face." Anyway,
just just attached.
yeah. So he did
God.
that. He's done a bunch of other stuff. He recently tried to do the longest swim, I think, consecutively in the Loch Ness, huge lake,
Yeah.
somewhere in the UK, I think in Scotland.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact. He might have been going for 48 hours, or he got to 48 hours or something like that. But just insane, like
So he's like the David Blaine of swimming.
swimming. There's a bunch of other things he's done. Like he's done a marathon pulling like a Mini Cooper behind him or some sort of small car.
Good God.
But he's not just like he's not like a David Goggins in the sense that he just does this and then like talks about it like in a motivational sense. He's got like a background in sports science, and so he's like approaching it as a scientist as well, and he talks about it in that way in his books. And
does he just do
yeah, you would.
books, or does he tweet? Or is he more like
He does YouTube and he does books. I would
I'll
recommend
check
the
it out.
books though. The first book about him swimming. The second one is like actually about his approach to training, which I found fascinating.
Yeah.
Like how do you build a training plan over the course of the year, and like hit all these different cycles and
Yeah.
like so on and so forth. So that's my first. Why don't you jump
Nice.
in
Yeah, my first is
with one
Mike
of yours?
Posner. I think you know who Mike Posner is, right?
Love that guy.
Do you?
Yeah.
And you follow him on social?
I don't think I follow him, but I know enough about him to know that he's like a pretty cool dude.
Yeah, he's a vegan, by the way. But let's
Never
focus
mind.
on the more important thing. Yeah, never mind. Fuck that. So the reason why Mike Posner is one of my favorite outliers. So first off, I know him personally. We are not
Right.
in touch or friends anymore, but we went to college together and we were friends,
Nice.
like legitimately. He's a year younger than me. And I used to drive him around sometimes because he's from Detroit, and I guess he didn't have a car. So I have these like awesome little college memories. We went to a music production, like 3-day like training camp thing together. Um, I was I helped start a music studio on our campus, and like got money from the school to have all the gear. That's where he recorded "Cooler Than Me," his first hit. Like, so we were really
All right.
overlapping. But so he had this basically. He had a top 5, I think, Billboard pop single, Cooler Than Me, like as he was finishing college. And his
Wow.
career just explodes, as you expect.
Yep.
He's at every festival. He's on every late night show, Jimmy Fallon, like whatever they were then. He was on the Ellen show, just like literally just the next Justin Bieber type trajectory.
Mm.
And then complete and absolute crash. Like no label will put his music out. All of the tracks he put out after that over the next couple years, none of them went anywhere. And this has happened to so many like musicians, and it's just crushing. Like it's completely crushing because you burned through your money. You thought you were hot shit. Now nobody gives a fuck. So Mike took that and literally was like, it's almost hard to explain, but like his entire career craters. And he basically did a few things. One, he was like, I'm just going to lean into this. So he basically became homeless, and he started like just riding around the country in the desert with people. He started doing like psychedelics. He went to like the Landmark Forum. He went to Tony Robbins stuff. He just started like going deep, deep, deep into like self, whatever it is. And then he comes out of it. And this is like years later. This is like 2015, 2016. And he's taught himself how to play guitar, and he got super into like, quote, real music. Like, you know, he spent ages listening to Johnny Cash and learning guitar and whatever. And he starts making music that way with a real band, proper piano, drums, guitar. And that's when he wrote I Took a Pill in Ibiza, which was remixed and was like the biggest song of, you know, huge, huge hit. And so, but all the while through this story, he started sharing all of it publicly, like the whole thing. And then he you know, every day he's like, I'm going to be the happiest man on earth. He got into ice baths. He's extremely positive, extremely high energy. He's completely led by love and by the heart, and has just changed everything. And so seeing that trajectory and him coming back from what would have killed 99.9% of other people and becoming this, he's a thought leader, he's a speaker, he's a poet, he had a Grammy nomination. Like the dude just doesn't stop, and his motto is keep going. And so I love the guy. A lot of his content is a little corny, a little cheesy. But I'll tell you one more little thing about Mike Posner. When I was living in New York City, I hadn't thought about Mike in years. Like he had Cooler Than Me, like I said, and then disappeared for like 5 years. And everybody was like, well, whatever happened to that guy? I was in Washington Square Park in the Village, and I see, honest to God, I saw a homeless bum with a guitar behind him, sort of like walking through. Long, loose flannel thing, no shoes, kind of ragged pants, big beard, big curly hair, just walking through the park carrying a guitar. And I glance and I glance and I glance, and it was Mike. And I literally was like, oh shit. So I was like, Mike? And he's like, Sonny. And like we reconnected.
No way.
We talked for several minutes, and I was just like, do I need to call a mental institute? I'm like dead serious. I was like, uh-oh, this is a very tragic thing. But what he was telling me, he was like, dude, I'm traveling the country. I'm writing songs better than I've ever written. I'm playing these small shows. I'm playing guitar now. He's like, I'm playing this little thing in Brooklyn tonight. Why don't you come? And I was just like, cuckoo, bye, Mike, whatever. Wrote him off. Turns out he was doing this amazing shit, came out the other side, like Took a Pill in Ibiza came out like 6 months after I saw him. He's back on top of the world. And it was just amazing to see that kind of front row. And of course I wish I had given him the time of day and stayed friends with him, but such is life.
I love that. It's such a unique story.
Yeah, it is.
I don't think many artists do that.
Yeah.
It's like, definitely have the crash. Most of them don't deal with it that well.
Yeah. And Mike just wrote a song, like literally his songs are about how he got $1 million and spent it all, and how he had a pop song that was big and then nobody likes him anymore. Like all his songs are about those things. So it's just kind of, it's just amazing. But all right, let's wrap this pod. We have a bunch more favorite outliers we'll talk about. And I got a bunch of new ideas. Yeah. Def.
Yeah, man. Good episode.
Right, yeah, actually was. Cheers. See ya.
See ya.